Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Whether your dad is living or not, whether you know your father or not, whether that relationship was good or maybe even not so good, chances are you have had a father figure in your life. It could have been an adoptive father, stepfather, uncle, cousin, teacher, mentor, coach, or family friend. We have all learned something or have moments we will remember from an influential adult male or more sometime in our life. So, as we get ready to celebrate Father's Day, I just wanted to take a few minutes to share some memorable moments and things that I learned from my dad growing up. And then I also encourage you to think about what you have learned from your dad or father figure in your life, or just maybe some memorable moments that you still treasure. So here's to my dad celebrating his second Heavenly Father's Day. Some things that I remember most or that I've learned from him. So the first thing is how to ride a bike without training wheels. My dad knew I could ride a bike without training wheels. Actually, there was no option not to ride a bike with training wheels. So he practiced with me, but I was pretty stubborn. And I said, I would ride my bike when I was 5, and I did. On my 5th birthday, I got on my bike and rode it, and I still ride a bike today. So thank you, Dad. My dad also taught me to do what is right, even if it's not easy or convenient. So I remember a time when we were younger, I was probably in elementary school, maybe upper elementary, and we were going back home to Minnesota from visiting relatives in northeastern Nebraska. And my dad got pulled over for speeding, even though there were a few cars that had already passed us. And he got his ticket from the state trooper. And I just distinctly remember the name tag. The state trooper had the same name as my dad, except it was spelled differently. But as we crossed into South Dakota, instead of continuing home, we stopped. My dad stopped at the police headquarters to get his speedometer checked in the car for accuracy. Then a few months later, we all went back to Nebraska so my dad could challenge the ticket in court. And guess what? He won. So thank you, Dad. I also learned the love of nature and country living. We often went camping in the summer at various locations until I was in junior high. I remember we had this pop-up camper, and that would just, the canvas stuff where you slept would just like shake in the wind and make a lot of noise. So I'm not exactly sure how well we slept those times. But we also went on annual camping trips with 6 of my dad's best friends from high school and their families. The part I loved the most about camping was the hiking and the bonfires. And then when we went camping with my dad's friends, the dads all made pancakes, sausage, eggs, and bacon on portable grills for breakfast. Yummy. I also enjoyed visiting my uncle's farms in northeastern Nebraska, where my parents were from. It was just the peacefulness of just living in the country and being able to explore in the creek and the trees. And it's still something I really enjoy doing today. My dad also really liked to hunt squirrels and rabbits at his brother's farm. And for some reason, I like to keep some of the squirrel tails and the rabbit's feet. Don't know why. Good luck charms. Who knows? Thought they were cool. That's the things you do when you're younger, I guess. So thank you, Dad, for the love of country living and nature. Independence. I learned that doing things for myself by myself, and that there is nothing that I cannot do without a little bit of effort and hard work. My dad was really good at making something out of nothing, doing and fixing things himself. He was really, really good at making organizational shelves in the house. and had a workbench in the basement where he kept all his tools and miscellaneous items organized. He even made my mom various things to organize all of her sewing thread and material for all the quilting and the sewing and the alterations that she did. And I still, when I go visit my mom, I find more ways and evidence that of my dad's handiwork and of all the things that he kept organized just by building things himself. So I mentioned he had a workshop and a workbench in the basement. It was a small storage room in the basement of our house. And in junior high, and maybe even just a little bit younger, but I distinctly remember in junior high, I would love to go down there and use his hand saws and other tools to make letters and animals out of scrap blocks of wood. And I remember making a dolphin once, and also remember breaking lots of saw blades and try that I was trying to saw rounded shapes with a straight saw. I don't know. I just enjoyed making things out of nothing. So thank you, Dad. Also learned how to be my own boss and run my own business. After decades of working as a manager for a gas company, my parents bought an on your honor snack business where they packed boxes of candy, chips, and cookies and brought them to various businesses for them to use in their break rooms. So we, as kids, learned how to work hard. We often spent nights and weekends doing what was needed to get the work done. So yes, I packed snack boxes and we washed vehicles and waxed vehicles and cleaned up the shop. And so we learned that value of hard work. And also just being your own boss is just an amazing feat. And I've been self-employed, my own boss for about 25 years, and I have loved the flexibility it has given me. So thank you, Dad. I also learned how to drive a car. Well, actually, it was a conversion van that my parents had for their snack business. I remember going to with my dad to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So the business was in Fargo, North Dakota, driving down I-29 down to Sioux Falls to pick up a few small vending machines. We were moving from the boxes to little vending machines. So somewhere on the interstate in northern South Dakota, my dad pulls to the side of the road and told me to drive. Yep. My first experience driving a vehicle was on the interstate. Thank you, Dad. I also learned the value of saving money and living modestly. Growing up, I babysat a lot in high school, and my parents had us, any of us kids that earned money, put half the money away into a savings account that was not to be touched. And I really didn't know what happened to the money, but sometimes I would look when I made a deposit and they give out those little deposit slips and it tells you the balance. And I was like, wow, I just thought I had more money in there than that. And it wasn't until later, much later, like after I got married and we were trying to buy our first house, that I learned that my dad had invested the money that I had in my savings, plus some other money, for me to use for college. But since I didn't need the money for college, I was on an athletic scholarship. I didn't tap into any of my savings. So this money was there for me now to use how I wanted. So my savings allowed my husband and I to put a nice down payment on our first home. Thank you, Dad. And also living modestly. Growing up, we had the necessities and never felt like we were without. But there was this general sense to be wise with your money that you earned and not to spend it on things that were not needed or spend more just to get a name brand when a lesser known brand was of just as good quality. So he was frugal. And I would say I still am today. I'm just watching, buy the off brand, the store brand items, don't need to spend the extra dollars necessarily for name brand stuff, but the quality of what you're getting. Is it worth the pennies that you put into it? Or actually the dollars? So thank you, Dad. Another thing I learned was to keep an even temper. Like, don't let your emotions get the best of you. And I only remember one time that my dad got really mad. And I really don't know the reason for it, but it had to have something to do with one of my siblings not liking what mom cooked for dinner because it happened around the kitchen table during dinner time. My mom probably made fish because at that time, none of us liked fish. I don't know which kids do, but not mine. My dad got up from the table and shoved one of the wooden chairs so hard, it hit the corner of the counter and it made this indentation on the back of the chair that you can still see today. Just reminds me that, you know, it only takes one action sometimes, like an action in a different way, a different response than expected to get somebody's attention and to make a lasting impression. Thank you, Dad. Dad taught me to cook on the grill. My dad loved to cook on his Holland grill. The best was his rotisserie chicken on Sundays and rotisserie turkey on Thanksgiving. Actually, he gave us a Holland grill for our wedding gift. And later, I had to get a rotisserie attachment for it because I missed the taste of his rotisserie chicken. And now we have a pellet smoker, and I rarely use my gas grill because my pellet smoker is the best right now. So thank you, Dad, for the love of grilling. Other values that I gained that I feel that are important. For my parents' 50th wedding anniversary about 5 years ago, I reflected on the values I learned from my parents that I was kind of hoping that I'm passing on to my children as well. And these include family first. Family is so important, which was shown in so many different ways growing up, including eating meals together. No matter what the crazy schedule was of our games, our practices, or my parents getting home late from work, we made the effort to sit down at least for supper time to eat together as a family. Also, visiting family for holidays and over summer vacation, celebrations such as family reunions, graduations, and weddings, it was important to visit extended family. Family first also means just having fun together. So I remember playing board games like Uno, especially when we were camping, or board games around the kitchen table. So just having some fun together. My parents also came to all of our sporting events. Even though they ran their own business or, my siblings were doing something else, they made sure that they were at our games. And that is something that I try to do for my own kids. Even though I have 6 kids and they're spread out, try to make an effort to get to all of their games. Another value that I feel like I've learned from my dad and my parents, discipline and accountability. Saving money, setting rules, or having curfews and expectations. The best parents and dads set boundaries. They teach responsibility and respect and let natural consequences and tough love be the teachers. Yes, thank you. Also learn the value that nothing good comes easy. There's a lot of hard work, dedication, and sacrifices that go into providing opportunities for your kids and family. And if you really want something, you have to work hard to get it. So the value of hard work. And also, homemade, cooked from scratch meals are the best. They are the healthiest and best tasting meals to have, especially made from ingredients grown in your own garden. Now, my dad's job was tilling up the garden and getting it ready to plant and keeping the weeds out by tilling some more. My mom did a lot of the gathering of the harvest and canning and freezing what came from the garden. So thank you. We still garden today, and my kids love homemade, made from scratch meals. There's so many more things that I've learned and the values that I have been instilled in me in my life because of what I've learned, witnessed, and experienced from being around my dad and my mom growing up and into adulthood, as well as from other adult male figures who were influential in my life. So take for instance, like my uncles. I learned how to water ski and jet ski from them. Even though I grew up in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, we didn't grow up near a lake, nor did we have a boat. My parents were not fond of being on or in the water. Camping by the lake or fishing from shore was just fine for them. My uncles had the boat and the jet skis. So thank you to them for coming up to Minnesota and going to the lakes and allowing me to learn to water ski, even though I probably only spent 2 or 3 years doing it. So as I wrap up, just remember that our lives are shaped by the people we have in our lives. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but there are always lessons to be learned from them if you take time to reflect and be grateful. So happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, living and deceased.